Culture Pastor.
All right, here we are.
Quarter pounder with cheese.
Are we here? We'll have everything. I'm not going anywhere until I get an apple pie.
I'm sticking with my quarter pounder with cheese.
Honestly, if you're at McDonald's in Oklahoma in 1982, you could do a lot worse than the quarter pounder with cheese. I got to say, there was something about this episode of seeing the old styrofoam containers that just gave me joy in my heart. Yeah. I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
they just tasted better.
They killed the environment to make this one episode.
That's what I'm told. I bet it wasn't really styrofoam. You don't think they used real styrofoam, did you?
Yeah.
You think they did?
Yeah.
Okay.
A dolphin somewhere died because of it.
Oh, no! Don't tell Greta. Hi. Welcome. This is Pop Culture Pastor Watch-Alongs. I'm Dave. Cody's here.
I am.
Matt's here as well.
Yeah.
Hi, Matt.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good.
We're going to get into this episode. Episode 2 of Season 2 of Loki. We, first of all, the episode starts, we can just get right into it. The episode starts in 1977 London. We pretty much get dropped in there. And I'm wondering, did it take you a few minutes to figure out what was going on?
No, I don't know that. Yeah, maybe a moment.
Yeah. What about you, Cody? Were you confused about what was happening?
Not particularly.
Okay.
Until I saw Brad, then I sort of.
Well, so
Brad at that time.
I followed pretty easily, but I was doing some homework, some studying, some reading what other people thought. There seemed to be an inordinate amount of reviewers who had trouble. Well, it seems like we missed something. Why is this episode? And it was pretty clear that some time had passed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Brad seems to have been gone a while when we find him, or X5 as he was known in the TVA. But I like Brad better.
Yeah,
Brad. He seems like a Brad, by the way. Yeah. No offense to any Brads listening.
Total Brad.
But Brads are have a certain way about them. You know what I'm saying? They're either cool or they're not.
Looking at you, Brad Pitt.
Yeah, that's mine with Brad Pitt.
You're either cool or you think you're cool, right? But all Brads are like that. I'm just kidding. I was trying to be funny, but now I'm afraid there's a Brad listening, and he might.
The Brad slander will not stand on this show.
The Brad. I wish we had a friend named Brad, because that would be a great nickname. The Brad.
I do have a friend named Brad, and he came to my brain as well. So
yeah,
B-Rad. That's what I call Brad.
Ruined Karen. Now we're going to ruin Brad.
Brad, who is played by actor Rafael Casal. I just want to point him out early here in the episode, because I thought he was wonderful in an episode that I thought had a lot of good character work going on, a lot of good acting. But this is a good cast. So, yeah, I know Cody has thoughts about some of the. Cody lamented what he calls filler.
So if Brad is someone important going forth, I'm great. But if Brad is a one-off, he just occasionally comes around and it's brief moments, you get an episode a season of Brad.
Yeah,
I'm good with that.
I can't guarantee that he's not just a one-off. He's Zaniac, man.
He's Zaniac. Yeah.
We need more Zaniac. Evidently.
It will be interesting. I kind of hope he's there's been several characters that have already taken a step forward, like Eugene Cordero's character Casey, who was sort of like a bit guy in the first season, but now seems to have a bigger role. And I'm glad for it, because every time they give some of these actors a little more to chew on, like Casey with OB, those scenes are great, and we'll get to those in a little bit. But
yeah,
right off the bat, we're in 1977 London. The TVA, some people were having trouble with the times past. We didn't seem to feel that.
Either you have not watched shows with a lot of time travel or haven't watched shows with a lot of multiverse.
Yeah. Some people were tripping on it because like the TVA was in disarray when we last left it. Now they seem to be functioning kind of similar to their previous capacity that we saw in season 1. But now under the leadership of, what would we say, a conglomerate of guys, including Mobius and B-15 seems to have taken a step forward and seems to be kind of supervising. But they're on the hunt. They're on the hunt for X5 because they assume that X5 was the one. He was the one dispatched to go look for Sylvie by Docs, who they have no idea where Docs is.
Right.
The general. But their main mission is to go after Sylvie. That's what they're trying to do, and so they think this was one of the weaker parts of the episode for me is the assumption that he has found Sylvie and knows where she's at. Like,
right.
Why do they think that?
Yep.
They never really connect the dots of that, and that kind of bugged me.
Are we talking who found Sylvie?
Well, their assumption. So Mobius and Loki and the TVA's assumption that Brad knows where Sylvie is.
It made sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not terrible.
Brad is the best hunter around.
Okay, well, then, and hey, if that's what they're going with, then I'm fine with that.
But they seem to know he went AWOL, and why would he know where Sylvie's at if he went AWOL? I don't know. I guess.
Well,
that's where I had a
because
little trouble, and I know we could put that together.
They do imply, as Cody said, that he's a great hunter, right? He's like Docs' right-hand person, which is like, since he's Docs is a general and they showed all her medals, you assume that X5 is good at what he does. And so they're making an assumption that he did find her before he decided that. And they allude to it. Remember, he says she has a new life. Mm-hmm. So there was some sympathy from him there because that's what he wanted, right? Because they find X5 as Brad, now famous Hollywood actor in 1977, playing Zaniac. I mean, life is good. And they take him in. The whole chase scene's kind of cool. We get to see Loki being Loki, which we haven't seen in a long time.
So this was one of the parts I actually liked. Mm-hmm. And I told my wife in the middle of the scene, I'm like, oh, he finally gets to use his abilities.
My kids who were watching with me, when he hits him with the green power and knocks him down the stairs, my daughter was like, what was that? I was like, that was Loki. She's like, what do you mean? It was like, he has powers.
He does have powers and literally hasn't used them forever. So
yeah, it seems like it's been a while. But that was the good part about that first scene, I think, was we get to see Loki being Loki.
Yeah.
Then they get back to the TVA. Mobius and Loki start playing a little good cop, bad cop, or as Mobius puts it, I can play the heavy keys. But he gets erupted before he goes like, I can play the light keys, which, like, can we just stop and thank God for Owen Wilson being in a Marvel show?
Yes.
Everything, like, it's so incredible that this is not Wes Anderson, but just because Owen Wilson's around, you get these Wes Anderson-y type moments. It's just amazing.
I would play into it every time.
Oh man, yeah. Well, so that's why a lot of reviewers did not like this episode as much. I was okay with it because you get more of these character moments, these acting, the good chemistry. Owen Wilson's fantastic.
Yeah,
he was wonderful in this episode. They do a lot more of that kind of stuff. Give space for the actors to shine in this episode, and I know that's not everyone's bag. I think that's why a lot of the reviewers were down on this episode because there wasn't the big action set piece, right?
Yeah.
There's the little chase at the beginning, but that happens. It ties itself up pretty quickly. They get Brad back to the TVA. And this is where I think we start getting a little bit of the deeper stuff. In an attempt to get under Loki's skin, Brad starts talking to him about how he can't really change, basically.
Right.
Calls him a villain. Now, this is a callback because season 1, the theme of season 1 for Loki dealt with a lot of, can Loki convince himself that he can change, right?
Right.
Because he struggles with that in season 1.
He says, I don't want to be the bad guy.
Right. And so I wonder if this prominently being discussed here, maybe the theme of season 2 is, okay, now I can convince myself that I can change. Can I convince other people?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I'll go with
That's a
that.
real life thing.
Yeah.
Because can you convince other people you can change? Or will there be some people that always refuse to see?
Yeah.
So I did dig that. Did you have any thoughts when you were thinking when he was doing that, or was it just Brad being Brad?
So during it, like, the only thing I had was Brad has to know that even if, like, Loki was at his lowest of lows, like, he's still viewed as a deity esque being, and literally, like, has enough vanity that he will convince himself of whatever he wants to. Mm-hmm. And so, like, the mind games, I appreciated it when they were trying to do it with Brad. I didn't necessarily get it when they were trying to do it with Loki. Doesn't work out quite right.
Yeah. Well, I wonder, okay, and this goes to what you were saying about his character, X5's character. Is this guy going to be recurring? I do kind of wonder if he'll be a recurring character that eventually kind of joins up with them in a way. One, because I thought his chemistry was great with Owen and Tom Hiddleston.
Yeah.
And he could be the guy, you know, that they're kind of dragging along a little bit, who doesn't really want a part of this. But he has something in common with Sylvie, which I'll bring up later, but we'll come back to that, because I think there's another theme that's happening in this show, but I'm not ready to talk about that yet. Brad.
That's a teaser.
Yeah, it is.
Oh.
Brad questioning Mobius, also trying to get under Mobius's skin. And this is interesting in the, like, you get the sense that maybe they'll flesh this out at some point.
Right.
Mobius doesn't want to know what his life was supposed to be. Because while he tries to get under Loki's skin in an obvious, like, I'm just trying to agitate you way, he goes after Mobius in a real way. Someone that only someone who recently found out his identity is fake kind of way could. Where he says, don't you want to know? Like, you had a life. He's trying to make an appeal to him of what's important to Brad, right? He's an X5 who, you know, is feeling a certain sort of way, like he deserves to go out and find his place in the world. And Mobius says, no, I don't want to know. Because Loki even questions him after, you know, they have the
Or
blow
some
up.
key lime pie.
Yeah, over some key lime, which, by the way, the pie situation looks great at the TVA. And that the Mobius loving pie and pie being readily and totally abundantly available at the TVA is hilarious.
Yeah.
I just love that. And that he loves his life at the TVA. But it leads to this questioning by Loki of, like, you really don't want to know? And the really interesting thing about what he has to say in return is, it's not that I'm afraid of I had a bad life. It's what if it's good?
Right. Mm-hmm. That was good. Obviously they're going to play that out more.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're definitely going to find out about Mobius's other life, I think, at some point. This is a mental health thing, though, right, Cody? Like, some people are just afraid to live life because what if it's good? What if good things happen?
Oh, yeah. You can get stuck in feeling comfortable with worrying about everything, with being depressed about life. And, like, you don't want to leave the comfort of what it is, even if it isn't good. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, that part of the episode worked. Again, my issue was with them trying to do it with Loki.
What part with Loki? Doing what with Loki?
Trying to do the mind tricking with Loki.
Oh, getting under his skin. Well, yeah. I mean, they tried to make it look like he was being a little successful getting under Loki's skin, especially when he mentions the part about his mom.
Yeah.
But does he? Loki never loses control.
Because literally, I think Loki would have wiped him off the map.
Yes.
He could have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the whole scene with the doohickey he brings in. If you have claustrophobia problems, oh man.
I do.
That was intense, dude.
I was sweating a little bit.
I was here for it.
Yeah. That was a great scene, actually. And Loki, kind of plays Brad like a fiddle. And Mobius and Loki both do, because Loki, or Mobius was never locked out, walks right in after it. And that all was pretty good. They find out, that he does know where Sylvie is. But let's cut to OB and the temporal loom for just a second, because I'm contractually obligated not to go more than 15 minutes without talking about Ki-Hai Kwan.
Yes.
Who continues to be the best part of the show, even though he gets barely any time this episode.
Right.
I agree.
The scene where they come in and he's on the floor, like messing with equipment. Yeah. Very nice. There's an OB Funko.
Yes.
Matt was just showing me a picture of an OB Funko. The scene where he's on the floor, I turned to my oldest daughter and I said, look, we're getting a grown-up Data in space, or in another dimension. And I feel like it just makes my heart happy, because he is kind of like a grown-up Data. That's kind of the part he's playing. He's playing a guy that invents things and makes things.
Right.
And he's wonderful in this episode. The whole scene where he meets Casey, who Casey has this, kind of worshipful attitude towards him once he finds out he wrote the manual.
He's fangirling.
he's straight up fangirling. Oh, nice to meet you. We're all going to die. That scene was maybe my favorite scene in the whole episode. And it's Ki-Hai Kwan, man. He's so good.
Can you sign my manual?
Oh, yeah. So good. By the way, would still love to get a look at that manual.
Yeah.
There's probably a lot of Easter eggs in there. Want to see that, but
When you mentioned the data thing, there's some fans. I was reading through some fan thing, and they're saying maybe that was his life. That
yeah. I know there's
wiped.
always the fan theories. By the way, you sounded like the mom in Goonies, and you, Data, use the front door next. You sounded just like him, like her. But yeah, he's working on a tool. He's trying to fix the temporal loom that is overloading, that is causing some unseen chaos is going to happen. They keep referring to it as a possible meltdown. But he finds out he can't get through the blast doors because he does not have the right temporal aura. And he figures out that they need He Who Remains. Right? That's where this is going.
It better get there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they read themselves into thinking we got to find Miss Minutes, but because they're still thinking, well, He Who Remains is dead, but they're not going to think that way long because they literally work in a time traveling operation.
Yeah.
So they're going to figure out, oh, we don't need He Who Remains at the end of time. We just need his temporal aura, which means he existed in other places in time. So I think where they're going with this is, they're gonna go looking for earlier versions of He Who Remains. And that's kind of where that storyline's left, because then we get into the Sylvie portion of the episode. Now, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because it's the 1980s and the 1980s McDonald's, but I adored every moment we get to spend in Broxton, Oklahoma.
Okay, this is probably the weakest part of the episode.
So he didn't like it because
and I'm an 80s
kid.
baby. I grew up in the 80s.
Ish for 5 minutes.
I do love it when he claims it, though. Name it and claim it.
Name it and claim it. Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, and myself. All 89ers.
Brad takes them to 1982 Oklahoma, and he's very nervous the whole time, which we find out why later.
Yeah.
And he takes them to the McDonald's that Sylvie is happily working at. And I think this is like one of my favorite parts of the episode as well, is the unspoken acting work that goes on between Sylvie, played by Sophia DiMartino, and Tom Hiddleston's Loki when she sees him. I thought that was super emotional.
Yeah.
And like there's that unspoken tension when, like when you had a fight with your wife and you don't talk for a little bit, and then both of you have convinced each other yourselves that the other person is the one who owes you an apology.
Right.
Like the other person wronged you, but you're both thinking that. And then there's that awkward like tension when you're like trying to talk it out. That was exactly how I felt in that moment where there's a long beat and he's like, hi.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just thought that was like relevant, adorable, realistic. Like I loved every part of that.
See, I'm with you. And Cody said it was his worst. You liked it the least.
It was so slow.
And I can see that. Like, look, here is the deal with we've talked about this in the Marvel Plus stuff or the Disney Plus stuff. Is you've got the people who love the action, set piece. And then there's the people who love the character development and the stuff that's a little bit slower, a little bit thing. Now, Cody's usually, he kind of bounces around. It's by feel with Cody.
Oh, yeah. And with this one, I'm like, okay, like, we get it. We get it. Like, you can do that with the first time that they're laying eyes upon each other, but you can't stretch it out for the rest of the episode.
And it doesn't add any charm to you that basically Mobius and Brad have the conversation that you're thinking. Like Brad's like, can we hurry this up?
Yes.
And he's like, well, it's complex. I mean, he's basically in a relationship with himself.
that part was great, but like, oh my goodness, no, it drug and like, it honestly turned me away from the character of Sylvie.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Like I had been Team Sylvie up until this episode.
Well, okay, but we find out. Okay, we'll get to it. We find out later she's hurting still. Brad is nervous in the middle of all this, and he lets slip Doc's plan while this slow part is going on for Cody because he's so nervous that finally they're like, "Hey, what is happening? Why are you so nervous?" Well, that's when he tells him like, hey, this timeline could get pruned at any moment because he knows what Docs is doing. And then this for me was the worst part of the episode. They go after Docs, who's pruning timelines, and it all gets wrapped up a little too tidily, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you agree with that? Like, it's just like, oh, we found her. It's a huge operation. Oh, we're here. We take her down in about 3 minutes. But not fast enough to actually stop
most of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so
it seemed forced for sure.
Yeah. We end up in the TVA at the end of the episode with them all struggling with they've kind of been a part of, right? There's billions gone. I still think, like, as I discussed last episode, this is a relevant thing for them to kind of dwell on. This idea of like, hey, was the cause worth the cost? Which you see in the world today. Mm-hmm. You're seeing it right now. Is the cause worth the cost in innocent bystanders, in what do we call collateral damage?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that is a relevant thing for them to dwell on a little bit.
So it might be because I'm more absolute on this that I'm like, okay, like literally, we all can't be sad, especially considering half of us were like, no, we got to prune this all back. Even Loki's like, no, this is for the best. We have to do this. He who remains, yes, no, this is it. And we clearly have OB saying, well, we can't have all these existing. It is overwhelming, the whole TVA. And so, like, I don't know why we're really mourning it.
Well, okay. This is the deeper part of the episode for me. I think it has a lot to do with the little exchange that happens at the end between Loki and Sylvie. He takes one more opportunity to ask Sylvie to stay. Remember, they're all staring at the screens. They're all very sad.
Yeah.
But she's still big mad at the TVA, and for the reasons that we just discussed.
Right.
Like, to her, there's no justification. You still were a part of this. You killed billions of people. right? She's big mad about all that, and she leaves just as he's saying. And I feel like not a lot of people caught this. Not a lot of the reviewers were talking about this because it happens simultaneously. She leaves just as he's saying, it's harder to stay.
So that was the thing that got spoiled for me before I actually watched this episode.
Oh, no.
Because what day does it drop? Thursdays?
Yeah, Thursdays.
Okay, Chiefs play Thursday. I chose Chiefs over
Of course,
Loki.
yeah, as did I.
I did too.
And then Friday morning, literally, I'm on Twitter and fan outrage at the way Sylvie leaves as Loki saying, it's harder to stay. And I'm like, you fascist.
Yeah, they don't understand. See, they don't understand what the show's trying to say there. And I think we can pull X5 into this. Sylvie, X5, they're hurting. And when hurt people, like what do hurt people have a hard time doing? They have a hard time showing compassion
Right.
for the present. Because why? Because they've been hurt. They're looking to get theirs, right? Sylvie's like, I have a life now. I'm living for the first time, right?
Right.
And you understand why she's tunnel focused on that. The same with Brad, the same with X5. You understand why he's tunnel focused on that because he found out his life was a sham. Yeah. Now he gets to go live with the real freedom of making his own choices and living his own life. But when it's harder for people who've been hurt to show compassion, which is what this last statement is saying. Loki saying it's hard to stay. What he's talking about is literally co-passion, like the roots of the word. So co meaning to walk alongside, passion meaning suffering. And what does he do? After he says it's harder to stay, he turns around to face the screen, Mobius clearly shaken by what's happened, and he puts a hand on his shoulder. And that's the end of the episode. And I thought that was beautiful. Yeah. I was like, look, he's literally talking about co-passion. He's not trying to fix it. He's not trying to say, oh, it'll get better, Mobius. He just simply puts a hand on his shoulder. And I thought that was beautiful. I thought that was great.
Being present.
So I'll dive into my mental health.
Yes, dive in.
So if you view this as a traumatic event for Sylvie, that she's gone through a bunch of trauma throughout her life, which watching season 1, you know is correct.
Yes.
People that go through trauma, people that go through kind of this life or death stuff, of course, fight and flight mechanisms in full gear. But what a lot of people don't understand is the prefrontal cortex usually is shutting down or has shut down when you get into fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
And so it is the thinking, rational, logical part of the brain. There on out, your limbic system and your lizard brain are like in control. And it is just about making it to the next moment. And it takes a long time unless you are able to like ground yourself or do mindfulness stuff to actually kick the prefrontal cortex back on. And so like, yeah, there's no reasoning with Sylvie if she's still stuck in that moment, still stuck in that process in which literally she just saw potentially her timeline get wiped out again.
She says she doesn't even know. I'm going to go back if it's still there.
And so, I mean, it's definitely going to be a triggering event. And so, Loki can say whatever. It wasn't going to be meaningful for her.
No.
What he does with Mobius, good.
Yeah.
Sylvie, it was a lost cause.
I agree with it. I absolutely agree with what you're saying. Loki is trying to explain it from his point of view, which he's learning compassion, which is great for the character of Loki. But from Sylvie's point of view, the TVA is still wrapped up in their old mission. See, what I think is going to happen is OB's going to create his tool that to make the time loom able to handle more. And I think eventually by the end of this, you're going to see a TVA that's committed to protecting all the timelines, not just quote unquote the sacred timeline. So I think they're slowly turning a corner too. And I think that was part of what you saw in that last shot of them all being very sad. But yeah, I agree. They shouldn't Sylvie wasn't going to stay and shouldn't have been expected to stay. But I think once she sees the turn that the TVA will make, maybe she'll be convinced, because we know she ends up in the whatever quest, because we've seen her in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, and that was the episode, and I thought it was a okay episode. Let's get into who's your winner of the episode.
Oh, I got one thing I like that we didn't talk about.
Oh yeah. You want to do some what's good?
Yeah. So the guy from Eternals,
Kingo,
his poster. I saw it, and I'm like, hey, Kingo.
This show continues to be the king of the Easter eggs.
Easter eggs like crazy.
Zaniac, Brad, like these are all things that happened in old comics and just wild out there. Like the Zaniac stuff, that is so like out of left field. It's so out there. Kingo showing up in a poster,
which I'm like, well, at least the Eternals exist somewhere.
Did you have
it's in no other Marvel?
Oh yeah.
Business.
Yeah. Did you, Matt? Was there anything good we didn't hit on that you want to bring up?
We ended with Janis Joplin.
Yeah,
we did.
We did.
Yeah, and the song, only because I listened to it later again, really fit. I didn't. I was like, what's Janis Joplin? And so I played it on like Spotify, and the words pull up. I'm like, oh.
Yeah,
that fits.
Yeah,
like really well. So
yeah,
that was cool.
What was the name of the song?
You're gonna make me have to look it up.
Oh, you don't remember?
No, not off the top of my head.
Janis Joplin, Loki, season 2. Let's just Google it.
I'm afraid if I pull up on Spotify, I might just start playing it.
What is the Janis Joplin song in the end credits? It is.
I'm horrible with names of songs.
Cosmic Blues.
Yeah.
Janis Joplin's Cosmic Blues.
Yeah, look at the lyrics on it.
The song, okay, here we go. The song's first lines are especially poignant. Time keeps moving on. Friends, they turn away. I keep moving on, but I never found out why. I keep pushing too hard, and babe, I keep trying to make it right through another lonely day. Ooh, whoa. That part especially, I keep moving on, but I never find out why. That's relevant for Sylvie.
And the Sylvie, yeah. You were talking about the mental health. And
yeah. That's good stuff.
Stuck here.
That's good stuff.
Glad that it wasn't the ooh-oh that you were going to say was the part especially relevant.
For me, the what's good was just, I love the chemistry these people have together. This collection of actors. Even B-15, I thought has been very good in her kind of expanded. Her role's been a little expanded as we move on here. I again, of course, I think Ki-Hai Kwan's wonderful, and Rafael Casal I thought was really, really good. I was impressed at how engaging he was as someone I assumed was just a bit guy. But in this episode, at least, he was a major player, and I didn't hate it. I actually kind of liked it.
We're going to see more of him.
And liked him, yeah.
Yeah.
Winner of the episode. Do you have things that are not so good that you want to specifically talk about?
No.
Okay.
I'm not going to be negative.
Yeah. Because I think we brought up.
Come on, Cody.
I said there was a couple slow points, and there were a couple things I brought up as we went through. Who's the winner of the episode?
Ki-Hai Kwan.
Ki-Hai Kwan. Matt?
I'm going with Loki.
You're going to go with Loki. Loki gets to be Loki. I loved that he got to use the powers and stuff. A lot of people were raving about that, and I did dig that. I'm gonna go with Rafael Casal. I thought he was wonderful, and I thought he was one of the more engaging parts of the episode. And I found him. There were times when he was acting as quote unquote Brad that I thought, what else is he in? I'd kind of like to see his work. I really had those thoughts. So
I really had the thought I needed more Ki-Hai Kwan. So
yeah, well,
I agree with you.
I will never disagree with that. We need more Ki-Hai Kwan next week. Who's the loser of the episode?
Sylvie.
So, like Sylvie the character or the actress?
The character.
Yeah, the character is Sylvie.
The loser of the episode.
Which I'm not saying
I'm
people
gonna-
with mental health are losers.
No,
So
no.
I will clarify that. They just really did not endear you to that character whatsoever this episode.
Yeah, it's interesting that she's still very much stuck in season 1, Sylvie. That she has not.
Even the years of living in Oklahoma and working at McDonald's has not changed her for the better.
Yeah,
She's going through healing.
we're getting a lot of, but the contrast is wild because we're getting so much progression from like everyone in the TVA who's trying to deal with, the idea that, we lived a fake life and this isn't real. And Mobius is like in denial and like, and to see Sylvie, who's still very much stuck in her anger.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Who's your loser of the episode?
So I would agree with Cody. I would put Sylvie at the top, but because you already picked Sylvie, I would say the loser would be we didn't have enough Ki Huy Kwan.
Yeah, I think that's a justified pick. Ki Huy Kwan's the loser because we deserve more.
Right.
But I think you'll get more. I'm going to go with the loser being the characters that we haven't seen that we want to see yet. Where's Ravonna? Where's Miss Minutes? Where is Kang? Or He Who Remains?
If I'm not getting Kang, what am I doing here?
Right.
Yeah. What I'm curious to see where it goes, but we're getting teased with Ravonna and Miss Minutes and not seeing them. I thought for sure we'd get like a mid credits or end credits with Miss Minutes at least, and not getting that kind of bummed me out.
Yeah, we got a little bit of Kang's voice in the first episode, nothing in the second episode. I don't believe. And Miss Minutes is just completely.
Yeah. It's time for Dave's crackpot theory of the week. You guys ready for this?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna preface this with why I think they're going this direction. There's a line when Brad is trying to get under Loki's skin that has specific context in Marvel Comics where he calls him a loser. That's what you do. You lose. And that specific reference makes me think that where all of this is going.
To Beck in the early 90s.
No, but that's a great album. Odelay? Yeah, Beck's the man. No, I think what they're doing, what Kevin Feige's going to do with Loki and going into the Secret Wars movie is he's making this Loki Avenger Prime. So Avenger Prime was a story in the comics where it's like a variant of Loki that has in his reality, his brother Thor dies early in childhood, which allowed him to easily supplant Odin as ruler because no Thor around to stop him. He's a villain who wins, but it's this weird where he like becomes a hero in a way, but he saves the universe, but he kills everyone in doing it. It's a very weird. Somehow he ends up at what it's called the God Quarry in the comics, but it's very much like the Citadel at the end of time. And he builds an Avengers Tower in this story. He becomes Avenger Prime and he starts grabbing Avengers from the multiverse to help save the multiverse, right? So he starts collecting them. And I think that sounds a lot like maybe what Deadpool 3 is going to look like. And I just kind of wonder if they're setting up a version of Loki as Avenger Prime moving forward in the MCU after this.
I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, it kind of fits. Of course, they do a lot of stuff in the comics that they're not going to do here, but
right.
Yeah, I think they're definitely making this Loki Avenger Prime. They probably won't call it that though. Just doing the story. All right. How many timelines out of 10 are you giving this episode, Cody?
6.
6? A little bit lower score. Okay. Matt?
Yeah, I don't even remember what I said last time.
I think you were 7.5 last time. Yeah.
And that's what I was thinking because I'm still sticking with 7.5.
Yeah. It's
I
about
am.
the same for you.
Right.
Yeah. For me, it was a little bit under the first episode. But I think mostly because it was the first episode and it was the joy of having it back. I think I gave it an 8. Is that what I gave it? I'm going to give this one a 7. I still enjoyed it a lot. It's different. And I know a lot of people don't like the the character conversations and stuff like that. They want more of the action. And then I know some people like that sort of stuff, and it had enough of both for me.
So I am going to put an asterisk by mine. That like, so with Netflix, I can binge a whole series, and you can have a couple slow episodes as long as like it really develops into something at the end and pays off. And so if there is a significant payoff, and I'm like, oh yeah, season 2, episode 2 was super important, even though it felt like nails on a chalkboard at times. It could go up, but in the vacuum I'm in right now, it's a 6.
I think it's fair.
Like that.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I can't argue with that because, you know, there was some stuff in other series that,
And I felt like this episode absolutely was a builder. Stuff to build on.
Well, I think they're building to where they're going to go looking for He Who Remains. I think that's where this show goes from here.
Right.
That seemed pretty clear with the OB stuff and the temporal loom, the temporal aura, all of that stuff.
Well, even some of their commercials, like the
Yeah, we know he appears.
Right.
And we know it's in the past. So, I think that's where we're heading. What did you think of episode 2, listeners? Did you enjoy it? Was it a lot? Was it a lot for you? Was it not enough for you? Was it boring? Do you like the character-driven stuff, the chemistry stuff?
It was too fast paced. I want some listener to say that.
Maybe. Well, hey, I like the General Doc stuff got wrapped up a little too quick, in my opinion. But that was kind of weird for me. I was like, oh, she went from that was a major threat, and we just wrapped up that thread in like 5 minutes.
No, I want to time it. I don't think it was like 30 seconds.
Maybe not even 5 minutes. Yeah. They get
because
there, they hide behind some boxes. Now we're taking her down.
We spent
hold
too long
hands
in
and-
Oklahoma.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, but we got a hilarious scene with Mobius, eating an apple pie. All right. Let us know. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week with episode 3.